Hey everyone, welcome and welcome back to my channel. It has been some time since my last video, so I hope all of you are still doing well. In today's video, I will be showing you how I sketch and paint a little bike and some plants with ink and watercolor. So currently, I am refilling this pen with Noodler's ink, which is waterproof. This fountain pen is the Sailor Feud fountain pen, so the tip is a little bit special. It's a 55-degree tip. You don't need to use anything special, you can just use any waterproof pen. I did some practice sketches using this pen, but with non-waterproof ink, so I used the Sailor ink cartridge which came with the pen, and I do like the ink, but since I will be using watercolor over this later, I don't want that ink to smudge. This is the reference photo that I will be using, and you may have noticed that I sketched this little cafe by the seaside in my previous video. But today we're just going to be focusing on that little bike, which is actually not a functional bike, I think. It's just there for a show, and it's like a holder for those plants. But I'll just be using it as a reference for the structure of the bike and the plants. We'll definitely be adding some color to that bike and try and make it come alive. Right now I'm using a mechanical pencil to do a very light and rough sketch of that bike. I'm using also a sketchbook by Kadi, and it has watercolor paper, which is 100% cotton. So the type of paper that you use will greatly influence the outcome of your sketch in these kinds of ink and watercolor sketches. So don't use like a normal paper which is not watercolor paper, unless you know that it works well with watercolor. That's something that is quite important for beginners to know. And another thing that I would like to note is that this paper is quite rough. In my practice sketchbook, that paper was quite smooth. So the kind of sketch that you get from just from changing the roughness of your paper is very different. So you will see right now that I'm getting very rough strokes from the same pen that I'm using right now. So you can go back to see my practice sketch. It was we have a lot of smooth lines, even with when we're using the same pen, just because we have a rougher paper right now. I am still getting used to this pen and this tip, but it's quite fun to experiment with thinner and thicker lines by changing how you grip that pen. In general, I will sort of aim for thicker lines where it's going to be darker or there will be more shadows. Also, it's quite important to make sure and try and sketch this first wheel a little smaller and more oval, less round than the second wheel that we will be sketching later, because that second wheel will be nearer to us, so it will look like it's bigger. So you can see that my lines are not super perfect. They're completely very scratchy and not super connected. Some of it looks very messy, and that's okay, because this is a sketch, it's not a technical drawing. the right side of that wheel has thicker lines compared to the left side. So it kind of feels like more light is hitting the left side of that wheel. My pencil sketch was very quick and very rough. My aim here is to be doing this sketch quickly. Maybe if I were on site and I had to do this in a limited amount of times, such as when you're urban sketching, then you will need to do things quickly and not to fuss over too many details. So the first thing is always to get the structure as accurate as possible within the time frame that you have. Of course, if you have a lot of time, you can always spend more time on that pencil sketch and try and perfect things. And then your pen sketch will also become more accurate, more controlled, maybe. So for this second wheel, I struggled a little for that right side. I think part of the reason is that the ink wasn't flowing as smoothly with this combination of pen and paper. And I needed more support from my little finger at the bottom, but it was off the page at that side. So that is something that I am going to be taking note of for future sketches. So finger or wrist support helps you to control the pen better, especially when you are using more force to sketch. I prefer to have my paper at an angle also. So the book is propped up on my pencil case, and it's at this angle it is easier for me to get the perspective right. Right, now we have a somewhat lopsided wheel, and some of you may think that it's better to stop and start all over. I know some people tend to want to have their sketches really perfect, so they when they do mistakes, then they will start over. I, however, think that it is always best to finish the sketch no matter how many mistakes I make. So it might look less than perfect, it might look bad now, but maybe later on you can make some corrections. After you add color and shadows, it may also still look nice. So for me, it's always better to finish the sketch no matter what mistakes I make, or if I don't really like it halfway through. Sometimes you just need to get past that ugly stage that certain paintings and drawings need to go through that stage, before you can get to the better parts. So yeah, just keep going. So as you can see here, I'm not following that pencil sketch at times. I'm doing some adjustments as I go along. And because that pencil sketch is just a guide for me, and what's important is to always look back at that reference and try to sketch what you see and not what you think you see. In this case, you can see that the left handle of that bike should be a little bit shorter than the right one, than the one on the right side. So the left side is, it seems like it's shorter, but actually both of them are the same, just because we are looking at it at an angle. So these small things, they add up, they contribute to your overall feel. If, say, you drew both of them the same length, it would look odd. It would look not so natural. It wouldn't look real. Okay. Now I'm drawing that basket for the bike, and I'm filling up that space with these vertical lines. It doesn't need to be exactly the same as the photo. It's just important to have the overall structure right, and then the small little details don't need to be really that exact. I always prioritize capturing the impression of something instead of the exact details of something. It doesn't really matter for these kinds of sketches, especially for plants. Now you can see I'm just trying to capture that silhouette first. Then I'm adding a few lines, curves inside. And that's basically it. It seems like it's very complicated. We have so many leaves to draw, but actually, plants are pretty easy because they're very flexible. We can do we can have a lot of freedom when we sketch plants. The most important thing is to get a nice silhouette and just capturing the overall feel of that subject, that plant, trying to get the shapes similar to what you see in the reference is very important, and it contributes a lot to the feel of your sketch as well. Right now, I'm just adding some final details and doing some little adjustments. So after I made sure that the ink was completely dry on the page, I then used this kneadable eraser to rub off some of those pencil marks, those that are really sticking out. And now we're going to be starting with watercolor. Today I'm just going to be using 6 paints from this Daniel Smith Watercolor Essentials set. And we're going to mix all the colors that we need. So the first color is ultramarine, French ultramarine, mixed with some new gamboge. So we're getting this warm green color. And to lighten that mix a little bit more, I added some Hansa yellow light. So we're going to be starting with those plants first. I really spent some time loading my brush with paint, and it's quite a lot of paint, and it's quite a lot of water as well. So we want really wet paint on that page so that later you will see that I add a different green, a darker green, and we let those paints mix on the page. So now very quickly, I'm just using a second brush. I'm adding more French ultramarine, and you can see that the mixture turns very blue. So then I add more yellow, which we call new gamboge. And basically the ratio is slightly skewed towards more blue. So then we have a darker green, and now I'm adding it just to the bottom part of that plant. I'm actually not so happy with that, with how that came out with that first plant. But that's okay. We can still do adjustments later. But you'll see that I do a little bit better with the second plant because now I'm a bit more familiar with these colors and familiar with these paints. So now I'm working on that second plant, and I have a slightly better idea of how I want those strokes to be placed. It's very hard to say how I do it. You can see what I'm doing, right? So yeah, now I have a slightly better idea of what I want because I've already done the first one. And so I think I did better for that second plant. I'm really honest, aren't I? I'm just like, I'm not a very perfect painter. You can never see perfect in my paintings. I just can't get myself to do things over and over again. So I just show you how I do it the first time I do it. I don't do things again and again to get that super perfect result. I think that's realistic, you know? And I think it's, as you can see here, I think it's really important for us as humans to actually make mistakes because we learn so much just from making those mistakes. We actually don't learn as easily when we watch other people. We actually learn more when we do it ourselves, and when we make mistakes, we gain experience, and that experience is invaluable. So that's why people always say, you know, practice makes perfect. Because if you don't do it yourself, you can never know if you can actually do something and you can or maybe you'll make mistakes the first time and then you get better the second time. I think that's really just being human, right? Like, imagine smooth sailing all the way from the get-go. It's no challenge, no ups or downs. Like, where is the fun in that? I think creating involves a lot of experimenting, and that comes with the possibility of making lots of mistakes. So I hope that, especially the younger generation, we don't get too caught up in chasing and watching perfection. There's so much that we see on social media which it seems perfect, no mistakes, smooth sailing, and sometimes when I look on social media these days, I feel like I'm not sure if something is real. It's too perfect, and when I see these things that are too perfect, or I wonder if they are real, I just don't really like those kinds of things. If it doesn't feel authentic, I don't feel like I have an emotional connection to what I see. So I think making something that is real is becoming more and more important these days. So yeah, that's what I think. I love how the grass is coming out right now. It's basically me just using two different brushes, one for the lighter green, and then I come in with a darker green. But for the grass especially, I try to create lots of different textures. So I have these blades of grass sticking out, but I also have these parts where I have dry brush, so we have that texture from the paper showing through, and I have a very rough paper, so it's very nice to see that texture. So it's not dark enough, I think, but we will be adding shadows later. So right now I'm mixing Pyrrole Scarlet and quinacridone rose to get that light red for the body of that bike. Of course, I'm not following the reference photo right now. The reason why I chose red is, of course, because, well, I think it's going to stand out really well and complement all that green, and also we'll be having a little bit of blue for the pots. So whilst I have that red on my brush, I'm also going to be adding a little bit of red to those plants up there. This could suggest flowers or a reflection of light from the bike or other sources. Now we're on to the third color, which is a mixture of phthalo blue and a little bit of French ultramarine, plus quinacridone rose. So we have a sort of purple blue mix. Here you can see that I'm actually doing my experiments. I'm adding different paints as I go along. So you can see that I added more blue to my paint because initially it looked very purple. And I also left a small spot there, which is unpainted, because I want that to look like a little highlight. So I want that sun shining from mostly the left side. So I added a bit more paint on the lower right side as well. Now I watered down that paint. I added more water to my paintbrush. So now we have a much lighter blue as I'm going along now. I'm also adding a first layer for those wheels or tires. We're going to make it quite dark later, so it will look like real dark black tires. Alright, so now we're going to be aiming for a shadow color, a dark, maybe blue, black color. So I'm adding all these paints, New Gamboge, Quinacridone Rose, more French Ultramarine, and the end point is this something that looks actually like black. And now we're going to be starting with the shadows. So most of the darkest shadows will be towards the bottom and towards the right side, especially below those plants. I do love how versatile watercolor paints can be. It takes some time to get used to them, and it may seem difficult at first, but it just takes a little experimenting to make some interesting colors and to paint something simple. So if you want to increase the intensity of the color, you can add layers, or you can add more shadows by adding more layers as well. So it's quite versatile in that sense. At this point, we are almost done. I'm constantly referencing that photo, and I'm stepping back from that sketch and trying to look at it from further away so that we see areas that need more shadow or more color. And so this is the part where we do all the minor tweaks. I will also be tweaking those the grass on the near to the wheels as well. Here I was basically like done, and so I just put in my signature. As you can see that I'm struggling to get the ink to flow smoothly, so I guess this combination of pen and paper is a little bit tough. Maybe we'll need more practice, or maybe I'll just need to use a different pen next time. But at this point, I stepped back and I actually realized that I should try and tweak that wheel, especially the right side, a little more. So I went back in with my pen and I tried to do these adjustments to make them more level. I think it looked better after I did the adjustments. So yeah, that's basically it. So I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe you learned something. If you joined in and sketched with me, do leave a comment down below. I would like to know how you did. If you have any suggestions for future videos, do leave a comment down below as well. I will try my best, but I'm sorry that I can't be posting very often because I just don't have a lot of time to do these videos anymore. But I will do my very best to keep posting. Thank you so much for all of you who have been sticking around and giving these beautiful, encouraging comments. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for chilling out with me here and sketching with me. It's amazing to have you all here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.